Okay, so you can drop the YouTube link on the comments, please. I think some people are having network challenges. So it's a Nigerian thing, you know? So we have to. Okay. Simeon, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
I may start.
Okay.
So let's start. Yeah, then when they join us, yeah, we cannot afford to waste time.
Hello, can you
people
hear me?
already waiting. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Joe. We start. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Joe, go ahead. Okay, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, all.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, all.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so quickly we'll just have to start. We're behind schedule. So we thank you for having us again. The agenda, we're going to follow the agenda strictly. So let's begin by saying the opening prayer. Can somebody in the house lead us with an opening prayer?
Can I take that?
Please go ahead, sir.
Lord, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to listen to another distinguished.
Can you lead us with an opening prayer?
Somebody is doing that already.
All right, Alex, you can do that. Yes.
In Jesus' name. Father, we want to thank you for another opportunity to listen to a distinguished lecturer that you have prepared for us for today. We ask that you give us listening ear. We ask that you give him the courage to speak to us. We ask that we make profit out of this technical discussion tonight. And we ask that everyone around the world participating, you give them very clear network signals.
Amen.
In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Can we proceed?
Hello, Dr. Joe.
Simeon, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so basically this is just a safety moment. You know, we are now on the issue of virtual because of this pandemic. But we have also noticed there are a lot of issues, events, incidents happening while people are having virtual meetings or events and thereabout. So if you are not speaking, please, you need to mute your microphone. It's very important. And for our questions and our comments, I'm not really, except you have something very serious you need to let us, you want to alert us, you can raise up your hands. But without that, we have our engagement teams that are in the chat box watching. So you can possibly just write your comments or your questions. For your questions, the prefix is C. Or sorry, for your comments, your prefix is C. And then for your questions, your prefix is Q, so that it's easier for our engagement team to know exactly they want to sort out for and they want to treat. This is very, very important. If you want to also share our YouTube link for other people, it's already in the chat box. So you can also watch it from the YouTube or from the Zoom here. Be aware of your environment is also very key. Beware of liquids around you. Beware of trip hazards, wires all around you. Maintain a very good posture also while you are on this. It will take us approximately an hour. We try as much as possible, but it's virtual. You can stand up, stretch, and go on. You don't have to sit down all through. So being alert of the environment is very, very key. It depends on wherever you are. Also, if you're at home, wherever that is cold, because people all over the world are joining us shortly. I'm very sure some other sections in the world will be interacting. Please indicate which section of SP you are from the world. We'll be glad to know the diversity of sections that is participating in this. So we really appreciate. We know they'll be joining us. So I think so. Basically, that is it. We just generally need to be aware and off your mic. So we just need to start now. Next slide, please.
Hello, sir. Please go ahead with the welcome address. Oh, I think it's not on the call again. Let's just give him a few minutes to rejoin, to take the welcome address. Hello, Dr. Joe, can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right.
Yeah, I think I'm on again.
Oh
my
Okay,
God.
you're welcome.
there.
Yes, he's here.
So can you take the welcome address?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So welcome everyone. We are very delighted. I think the network is misbehaving a little bit because of the rain everywhere in the south part of Nigeria here. But notwithstanding, we have the topic for today, which is hydrogen and energy 101. the CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. This has been presented by our distinguished lecturer. He was here with us on another presentation under the SP International in March, thereabout. And now it's coming again. Now it's, in fact, we can call him a DL emeritus, trying to support us with some technical knowledge to take home. And we know that the carbon capture, utilization, and storage is very quite, not just recent, but is the way to go in terms of, we started thinking about net zero of carbon or zero carbon or, all kinds of grammar. But the important thing is that, A, we can use our carbon. So we don't really need to be afraid. So, I mean, if we continue to get exposed to this, we can actually use our carbon, we can reprocess it, we can capture it, we can utilize it, and in fact, we can store it. So these are the things we'll be listening to today. So I'm also very grateful for the moderator, Dr. Ada, that's joining us also. So give the floor to her also to do justice to the wrap up and also to ensure we have a good moderation. Please, if you have questions, it's very important. You don't need to speak on your mic. You put a Q as a prefix, and then you put your questions. If you have comments, you are free. We have an engagement team that will be interacting with you all through. So thank you, and I wish every one of us a very pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Essie, for that brief welcome address. Thank you. See me next on the agenda. All right. Next is the introduction of the moderator. So can you quickly bring up the citation of the moderator? All right. Citation of Engineer Dr. Mrs. Adobe Stephanie Nwosu Anele. Dr. Adobe is a petroleum engineer who had an undergraduate degree in the elsewhere Rivers State University of Science and Technology, now Rivers State University. She had her master's degree in Department of Petroleum and Gas Engineering, University of Port Harcourt, and PhD from the African Center of Excellence, University of Port Harcourt. She's a seasoned and disciplined lecturer in the Department of Petroleum Engineering, Rivers State University. Her research interests are in petroleum and energy economics. She had authored some research papers on OnePetro and is a lead researcher and consultant on petroleum and energy economics issues. She's a member of Society of Petroleum Engineers, Nigerian Set of Engineers, and she's a registered engineer with the Council for Regulation of Engineers in Nigeria, current. She is currently the head of Petroleum Engineering Department at Rivers State University. Adobe, you're welcome, and we are happy to have you here with us. You are now going to take over the remaining session of this program. So we'll now allow you to introduce the guest speaker, Talib Saeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Good evening, all. It's a privilege to be in this technical section with you all this evening. And also, we have a very distinguished lecturer, Talib Saeed, PE. He holds a BTech in Chemical Engineering from the University of Madras, India, and an MSc in Petroleum Engineering from the University of Oklahoma. He is a registered petroleum engineer, and Talib started his oil field career with Aramco, Saudi Arabia, and has US and international experience, both onshore and offshore. Talib currently serves as SP Denver Section Chair, as HSC and Facilities, 1999-2000, and SP Member at Large in CCS Technical Section, 2019, between 2019 and 2020. and he's currently a member of the American Association of Drilling Engineers, Denver chapter, Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, and Groundwater Protection Council. It's a privilege to have such a wonderful lecturer with us. His CV is rich, and we are all yearning to learn from him this evening. We are all learning to learn from him this evening and gather the wealth of experience and knowledge that he has gotten from his vast work experience. So, Talib Seed, you have the floor. We're all ears. We're glad to have you. We're glad to listen to you. You're all welcome once again. Can we have our lecturer?
Hello, Tali, we are waiting for you.
Okay, it's trying to share screen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. I'll put it in the presentation mode here. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, but you can't see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. We can't see our screen. We are seeing you, but not your screen.
Okay, can you load up my presentation?
Okay, I should share it from my end. I can see your presentation from here.
Simeon, do you have a copy?
I have a copy, but he's trying to share. If he's not able to share, then I can share from my end.
Okay, let me try again here.
Okay.
Because yeah, I think you should go ahead and share it.
Okay. Hope you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay.
And y'all can hear me good too?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be again with you all. I had the pleasure a couple of months ago in March, and I thank Mr. Bolaboda for inviting me to speak today, and to Dr. Joseph and all the section officers, and to Dr. Adobe for being the moderator. And like I said, if it was not for the pandemic, it would have been a pleasure to see you all in person. So, but again, I'm grateful for the invitation, and thank everybody for attending today's presentation. So the topic is Hydrogen and Energy 101. What is the role of carbon capture, utilization, and storage? And this is a presentation that I had made earlier for the SP Denver section. And Mr. Butter was kind enough to invite me to make this presentation here. And let me see whether, yeah. The outline of my presentation is, we'll talk a little bit about the production and uses of hydrogen. As you all know, the use of hydrogen in the economy is a hot topic globally. And how can you integrate fossil energy into the hydrogen economy as a solution to a carbon neutral economy? We'll take a brief look at the hydrogen economy, the health and safety aspects of hydrogen, and a listing of the global CCS projects, and what are the challenges in scaling up the hydrogen economy. Next slide. Here we're talking about, like I said, hydrogen economy is big news today, but the challenges to produce, use, and store hydrogen are quite significant. But we expect the transition to take place to low carbon economy, but fossil fuels, mostly from natural gas, will remain the primary source of hydrogen by 2050. Especially in the US, it's about 75% of hydrogen production from fossil fuels. In Europe, it's about 65%, and in Japan, it's 85%. Most of it is produced from steam methane reforming of natural gas. The main uses of hydrogen is from production of ammonia for fertilizers, as a chemical feedstock and catalyst in petrochemical and refinery processing. So the price of hydrogen varies between regions, end users, and the transportation costs. Next slide, please. I'm sure you heard about a lot of this color that we're talking about, right? You'll hear blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, gray hydrogen, etc. So the black hydrogen is what, when you produce hydrogen from coal, that's referred to as black hydrogen. And if you produce it from lignite, sometimes you'll hear the word brown hydrogen. But the terms that you'll use most frequently are blue hydrogen and green hydrogen. So green hydrogen is when you produce hydrogen from, renewable sources, not from fossil fuels or coal or bio, so from solar, wind, etc. So that is the highest production cost, but has the lowest emissions. And for blue hydrogen, when you get from natural gas or oil and gas as a source, fossil fuels, then you get blue hydrogen. But the CO2 that is captured, if it is put down and stored or used for enhanced oil recovery, then that becomes carbon capture and utilization. So low carbon from hydrogen from renewable and nuclear electricity. So you got to get familiar with these terms that you'll frequently come across, like blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, etc., in order to meet the carbon targets that have been set by the year 2050, 2060, 2070, etc. Next slide, please. So what are the applications of hydrogen? It is used in the chemical, refining, and steel industry, in the gas grid to decarbonize residential and commercial heating, in passenger cars, as well as heavy and long-haul road and maritime transport, in the power sector, supporting the transition towards net zero emissions. Next, please. So the production, we don't have too much hydrogen production at the present time. And the global production is about 70 million metric tons. But as you can see, and the US is only about 10 million tons per year at the present time. But the bulk of it is from natural gas, steam, methane reforming. And then the next one is from coal gasification, and very little from electrolysis. Next, please. So this schematic gives what the potential use for hydrogen by market in 2050 in exajoules. So the size of the bubble indicates what the hydrogen potential in 2050 would be. So obviously, the larger the bubble size, the greater the usage. So you have in power generation and in transportation and in industrial energy for heat, and then as an industry feedstock. And the size of the bubble indicates what the hydrogen potential in exajoules would be. So 1 exajoule is 10 to the power of 18, or what we call 1 quintillion joules. And joule is the system, is a unit of energy and work. And 1 exajoule is approximately 25 million tons of oil equivalent. So the annual consumption in the US energy consumption is approximately 94 exajoules at the present time. So this gives a schematic of what the potential for hydrogen usage by market in 2050 would be. Next slide, please. This schematic gives the how you integrate fossil energy into the hydrogen economy. As you can see here, you got the electric grid infrastructure on the left, and the renewables, the nuclear, coal, gas infrastructure, and then the role that, as far as hydrogen production is concerned, its applications, for storage, it's for hydrogen transportation, synthetic fuels, upgrading oil, manufacture ammonia fertilizers, refining metals, etc. And then what CCUS can play. Remember when we talked about before, when we said is blue hydrogen, that is hydrogen that is from steam methane reforming, but the CO2 that is emitted is captured and then is used for either enhanced oil recovery or for storage purposes. And in the US, in the Permian Basin, we have been using CO2 for enhanced oil recovery for the past, almost 60, 70 years. I'm sure some of you have heard about the Permian Basin in West Texas. But the push for storage, they're not, good reservoirs throughout the world. So where there were good reservoirs, then storage becomes an option. Next slide, please. So the potential of carbon capture and storage for hydrogen production, as you can see here, the cost is the least for natural gas. So it's a little bit higher when you combine it with storage, about $3 per kilogram. Coal is less, but renewables is still high, almost touching $8 per kilogram. So the challenge is how can you scale from renewables down to be competitive with a US dollar per kilogram for natural gas to be competitive. Next slide, please. You'll hear the term carbon intensity, CO2 intensity. So if you look at this slide here, steam methane reforming with CCS, 90% CCS, the cost is about $2 per kilogram of hydrogen. With coal gasification, it's even less and around the same. But it's quite high with electrolysis with nuclear wind. That's when we refer to as green hydrogen. And so the challenge is how do you economically make it competitive with the others? Here, when you hear the term CO2 intensity, it is the amount of life cycle greenhouse gas emissions per unit of energy per megajoule. Another measurement term is how much CO2 is produced per dollar of GDP. That is how much CO2 is emitted when generating $1 in your economy. So this gives an idea of what you'll hear the term CO2 intensity, carbon intensity, etc. Next slide, please. So how can hydrogen be a part of the solution to a CO2 neutral energy supply? Hydrogen is not an energy source, but an energy carrier. That's why it might be, even better than electricity in some situations. It can be stored in tanks and underground, but that's just for small storage volumes. But it can be transported in using the existing gas pipeline network. There's a lot of work going on how you can blend hydrogen, but there are some challenges associated with that. Can be combined to make hydrogen-based fuels as feedstock in industry. Carbon neutral refers to the greenhouse gas reduction from the Kyoto Protocol. You all may have heard about the Kyoto Protocol in 1997, where companies can get carbon offset credits. And then the net zero carbon, that is with the Paris Agreement, which aims to limit carbon emissions to reach net zero by 2050. So, hydrogen can be converted to electricity in a fuel cell, but it makes sense to decarbonize. To achieve net zero, you got to decarbonize where it makes sense, and hydrogen is clearly the front runner in this space. So without hydrogen, a decarbonized energy system based on electricity will be more flow-based with need to match demand and supply. in real time to avoid supply disruptions. Next slide, please. So here, this gives, okay, you got hydrogen they're getting from natural gas. And then if you're capturing the CO2 and you got to transport it and either utilize the CO2, which would be the best way, but if not, you got to store it. As far as hydrogen production, its applications like we talked about in industry, power, residential, transport, mostly it is now with, with cars and automobiles, but there's a push also to use it for ships and also for, aircraft in the future. Next slide, please. This slide gives the, what the sources of CO2 emissions were in millions of metric tons in the US in 2018. As you can see, the bulk of it is from fossil fuel combustion, 81% CO2 emissions. And the next, is smaller portions for methane and nitrous oxides, etc. But this gives, a picture of how significant the emissions are from fossil fuel combustion. Next slide, please. Let's take a brief look at the hydrogen economy. Deploying clean hydrogen could reduce 34% of greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels by 2050. So we talked about before how a scaled up industry can lower the cost of renewable hydrogen to $2 per kilogram. So that's where the efforts are being made to make it competitive and try to get to green hydrogen, but you'll still need blue hydrogen as a enabling transition fuel in order to reach our targets. Cost could be 25% lower in some countries in the world, especially with good renewable power, like we got solar, wind, etc. And the key is you got to have good geologic storage resources. Obviously, if you're in Japan and Korea, the costs are going to be so much higher because you don't have the geologic reservoir space to store the CO2. But if you're in the North Sea or in definitely in the US, in some parts of the world, your costs are going to be quite competitive. The challenge is how do you abate CO2 in some of the hard to abate sectors of the industry, like steel industry, refining, cement, etc. Other applications are home heating and cooking, and to blend the hydrogen. Right now, the limit is between 5 to 10% hydrogen that you can add to your natural gas in your pipeline network, because it's the materials of construction, the brittleness, and the properties of hydrogen. So they're being looked at and to see how we can use the existing pipeline net infrastructure in order to transport hydrogen. It's definitely going to play a bigger role in the future in transportation, but right now it's more for trucks, buses, etc. So, electric powered vehicles sold globally was in 2019, about 2 million battery powered electric vehicles, but only 20,000 of those 2 million were hydrogen powered cars. But the reason was the large scale up of lithium ion batteries at the same time. Hydrogen did not have the same push. So hydrogen from solar wind is economically challenging. Work is being done on turbines, how to provide turbines by a mix of 20% hydrogen and 80% gas. And they want to reach 100% hydrogen by 2030. But it's not easy to get hydrogen, to source the hydrogen. And also the turbines have to be redesigned. Next slide, please. So what are some of the properties of hydrogen, that differs from natural gas? So it can be compressed, liquefied, or transformed, but it uses energy. You need special equipment and procedures to handle hydrogen. And even though it's non-toxic, but it is highly flammable due to its high flame velocity. So health and safety considerations are being looked at on how you can handle hydrogen-based fuels and feedstocks. Ammonia is a little bit, raises more questions, but will require professionally trained operators. So hydrogen is the simplest element in the earth, right? It has one proton, one electron, but it has become the hottest topic in energy circles globally. And there was the Hindenburg disaster, which occurred in New Jersey in 1937, and it killed 36 people. So a lot of people are afraid, and that was, transporting like a balloon. But we are really not sure whether it was caused by, the fire was caused by hydrogen, or was it due to other causes. Like I mentioned before, you need to redesign turbine fuel injectors, since hydrogen has a higher flame speed and also results in higher emissions, NOx emissions. Okay, next slide. So the next slide is storage. Like I said, for small scale, you can store it in tanks and for short-term small scale storage. But for large scale, you need to look at salt caverns, depleted oil and gas reservoirs, and deep saline aquifers. So salt caverns have been used for storage in UK and in the US since the 80s. There's a facility in Beaumont, Texas with a 3,300 kilometer pipeline network. Another one is being built in Utah, and there's a pilot project going on in Germany at the present time. Depleted oil and gas reservoirs have larger capacity, but are more permeable and may require, treatment of the contaminants. We have the least amount of experience storing hydrogen in aquifers. We're storing CO2 now for geologic storage, but we don't have much information on storage of hydrogen in aquifers. So if these challenges can be overcome, that'll be one option for hydrogen storage that is being looked at. Next slide, please. So this gives a listing of all the global CCS projects that are taking place throughout the world. I'm sure you read every day another project is being considered or being sanctioned, and if you look at it, there are a total of about what 24 in North America, 1 in South America, that's in Brazil. Europe has 22, the Middle East has 4, and the Asia Pacific has 14. These and some more have been added since this list was prepared in 2019. But there's no doubt there's more and more projects that are going to come online for storing CO2 that is emitted from, whatever projects that are used to produce hydrogen. One of the biggest projects is, you may have heard about it, it's called NEOM, Zero Carbon City in Saudi Arabia. So it's going to be a city with 1 million residents, going to be powered by 100% clean energy, and with a planned completion of 2025. In the US, you have Oxy Low Carbon Ventures in the Permian Basin. ExxonMobil has announced that their low carbon solutions, they have about 20 new CCS projects globally. And so wherever they're operating, they're going to have CCS projects in the Gulf Coast and Wyoming, in the Netherlands, what's called the Port of Rotterdam. And they're also involved with the H-Vision study in Belgium with the Port of Antwerp, the Acorn project in Scotland, and they're planning a CCS hub in Singapore. And of course, they got their operations in Qatar with the Ras Laffan operation. So all the companies, whether it's BP or Shell or ExxonMobil, Total, Equinor, everybody is involved in some form or the other. Like I said, if you in the US, another interesting thing is there have been, and the EU, there are regulations and laws passed by Congress and regulatory agencies that give tax credit. So if you put CO2 for enhanced oil recovery, you get $30 per ton in the US. And if you put it for storage, you'll get $45 a ton. So let's say you store 1 million tons per year. So you'll get times 45 million dollars per year. And if it has a project life of 12 years, you're looking at about $600 million of tax credit from the US government. The EU has similar proposals in place. So there's a big push from governments, stakeholders, society at large. Next slide, please. So this is a borrow from Shell for their project in Canada, Quest. And this gives schematically, and I like it. If you see here, up here, too much CO2 is a problem as far as the greenhouse gas emissions and climate concerns, etc. But deep down there, we have a solution, basically either for EOR or for storage purposes in order to address the greenhouse gas emissions problem. Next slide, please. This slide is just to show that if you don't have support from federal agencies in order to incentivize, it's going to be very challenging from an economics point of view. So this one for their project in Canada and Alberta, if you look at it, the cost for, out of the total capital expense cost, the grants that were given by Alberta and the Canadian government is, the total grants was 865 million Canadian dollars. And the total project itself was, let's say, about 1.1 billion Canadian dollars. So to emphasize, it's about 80% support from the federal agencies. And that's what is being done in the EU. And, you want to commercialize it and scale it up. But if you don't have the support of federal agencies and governments throughout the world, the challenge is going to be huge. So this is just to illustrate the big amount of support that is needed from governments throughout the world in order to enable this transition to meet our targets by 2050, 2060, 2070, and beyond. Next slide, please. So some of the top developments that took place in 2020, and this may not apply to countries like China and India and some other parts of the world, but in US, Europe, Japan, etc., coal is on its way out. US companies are retiring more than 12 coal plants in the US. In Europe, coal plant retirements are outpaced new plant commissioning, and global consumption is down. That could have been due to the COVID-19 situation too. Gas is also in decline. China and carbon neutrality. China has also agreed by 2060, they're going to adopt more vigorous policies and measures to achieve their targets. Green deals. So there have been a lot of green deals where they want carbon-free electricity goes mainstream. EU, and then the Biden administration has also proposed, a carbon-free power sector. Big banks are making climate commitments. So it's difficult to get a loan now from big banks if it is strictly for fossil fuels. You may have heard about the proxy shareholder vote that just took place in ExxonMobil's board yesterday, where they put 2 climate activists on their board. So financial institutions, I mentioned about shipping, how that is going to play a bigger role. There's been a separate loan that has been set up, $140 billion in loans, 30% of global ship finance portfolio. So shipping is also being looked at for decarbonization. Next slide, please. So green hydrogen is taking off. So you'll be hearing more about green hydrogen, like I said, blue hydrogen, etc. But how do you attack the highly intensive industries, the steel industry, the cement industry, etc.? As you know, the US has rejoined the Paris Agreement, and many countries are banning gas vehicles. France, Canada, UK, and in California has said that by 2035, there'll be no internal combustion engines. There's a renewed focus on methane emissions. And finally, racial justice has entered the discussion on climate activism, because most affected by climate change potentially are the poor and marginalized communities throughout the world. So these are some of the things that are driving the changes and push in order to meet those climate changes and reduce our dependence on fossil fuel. But remember, fossil fuel is still going to play a big role. It's not going to disappear, but it's not going to be the dominant player that it was in the past, but it'll still be an important player. Next slide, please. So to conclude, hydrogen will play an important role for future energy needs globally. CCUS will also play a bigger role in enabling transition to a low carbon economy. We have major challenges to massively scale up the hydrogen economy. Government policies, financial incentives, subsidies, global cooperation. You got to build up the infrastructure and the markets, the technology challenges. Can we use existing gas pipeline networks? How do we blend hydrogen? How do we attack the major industry sectors, steel, cement, etc.? But it is possible with today's technology to reach substantial near-term emission reductions. And the oil and gas industry, with its skills, resources, and experience, can play a major role in this energy mix transition. Now, that's the end of all the slides, I believe. Now we can go. Now I'll hand it over to the moderator to address the Q&A session. Thank you for your patience in listening to my presentation.
Thank you so much to our distinguished lecturer, Khalid Seed. It was a very interesting lecture. In fact, I've been excited about the topic, hydrogen and energy. And it's interesting that we keep getting more sources of energy from hydrogen and other things and carbon. And I know there are quite a lot of questions. I've been seeing comments from people, communications. So I would want us to look at them. But first of all, let me go to the chats and see what's happening there. So the team that are putting down the questions, can we have the questions so that our distinguished lecturer will do justice to them? Simeon, are you there?
Yeah. In the chat box, what I've noticed is, like somebody noticed too, we don't have any CCS project in Africa at the present time, and but I think in the future that will be a place for storage at least. What is happening is in the U.S., for instance, the storage reservoirs are in Texas, and in other states you don't have the storage reservoir. So one state will ship its CO2 to another state and pay for it. So if Nigeria has good storage space from depleted oil and gas reservoirs or other types of reservoirs, it can charge from other states and countries that don't have the storage space in order to capture the CO2 and store it. And because of its long history of oil and gas operations, you know, they are in a better, anywhere where oil and gas is produced would be a good candidate for storage of CO2 or using CO2 for enhanced oil recovery. And that is what is being done in the North Sea too, where you'll hear hubs and clusters being formed, where it'll be shipped from other parts of Europe and stored in, you know, the Norwegian sector of the North Sea or the British sector of the North Sea. And that is what is happening globally. One example that I heard is that Saudi Arabia might be shipping the LNG to Japan and Korea, where they will extract the hydrogen and then separate out the CO2 and ship the CO2 back to Saudi Arabia to use it for enhanced oil recovery or for storage in their reservoirs in Saudi Arabia. But the challenge is on transportation, for shipping and all those associated challenges. And for hydrogen, like I said before, turbines have to be redesigned. We got a lot of experience, right, with turbines for oil and gas applications. But how can we do that for hydrogen? So a lot of work is being done on that, on the redesign of the turbines to handle hydrogen, the materials of construction of the pipelines, the brittleness, the safety factors that we talked about, but a lot of work is being done.
I can measure office. Yeah,
Mute your microphone, please. Okay, I see that our lecturer has handled the part that says there is no CCS project in Africa, and that was a comment from Juwon Adebi. And Talib, I want you to take this question. What steps are the IOCs in Africa taking to drive the discussion or action on CCUS in Africa? Even though we don't have those issues now, do we have any plan on ground to handle it? Or are we saying we're actually clean in Africa, or there is no data to show that we have this CC carbon capture issue or carbon issue in Africa? So please tell us if there is any action being taken by any of the IOCs in Africa that you know about towards CCUS.
Yeah, I think the national oil companies and the international oil companies are looking at it, but you know, the financial incentives are not there like it is in Europe or in the US and Canada. Brazil, like I said, Petrobras is there, and then because of UAE and Aramco, etc. But there's a lot of financial subsidies that are being given, with the realization that sooner or later that the transition is going to take place. So I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And once the financial incentive comes in, where you can be paid, if so one company, and the rules and regulations are going to come. It's lagging right now, but it's going to happen because it has to be addressed on a global scale.
Okay.
But I think it's just a matter of timing, and of course the regulatory policies have to be in place too. The countries have to start putting regulations in place so that it drives the change, because without what happened in the US and particularly in Europe, the regulations were put in because the citizens demanded it. And once the citizens demand it and they say, hey, we will not give you a permit to drill for oil and gas, or we'll not give you the financial loans to explore for oil and gas, then it becomes very difficult for you to operate, what we call have the social license to operate in a place and in a community. We saw this with hydraulic fracturing, but once the companies and the stakeholders, everybody agrees that we're all together in this together, and we can produce oil and gas responsibly while still protecting the environment, and work with the stakeholders and the citizens and the government and the regulatory agencies, then some of these policies start taking effect. I think it's going to happen, but it's been, you got to have that regulatory push in place from citizens' input.
Oh, that's fine. I think we should have that regulation put in place. I don't know if there's something that happens in other parts of Nigeria or Africa, but we here in Port Harcourt, we experience what we call black soot or soot as a result of burning of fossil fuel, illegal burning of fossil fuel, and that is carbon, if you ask me. So I wouldn't say we don't have any issues with carbon in Africa. It may be that we have not pushed, just as our distinguished lecturer has said, Talib, we have not pushed to see that regulations are put in place to check these abnormalities that happen around us. Okay, we have another question here that says, how can hydrogen be utilized in Africa? How can hydrogen be utilized? Oh,
see, yes. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question. See, the application for hydrogen right now, the biggest use is for production of ammonia for fertilizers. And the other, as far as fuel cells, etc., is concerned, the need in Africa is not there yet. But if you got blue hydrogen that you can use, steam methane reforming, for instance, in refineries, okay? Whatever your refineries are, if you emit CO2, that can be captured, and the uses of, as a chemical feedstock, as an industry feedstock. But the primary use right now, it's also used in metal refining, etc. But right now, the biggest use is for ammonia, for fertilizers. Like I said before, there's a great need for hydrogen, but we don't have enough hydrogen production globally. We only produce less than, 100 million tons throughout the world. And there's a great need for it, but most of the emissions are, from the steel sector and the cement sector and the hard to abate industrial sector. As far as fossil fuels are concerned, if CO2 is emitted to the atmosphere, it has to be captured, so that in Africa, the global GHG problem is still not severe as it is here because the consumption has been less. But when you're looking from a climate perspective, you have to look at it from a global perspective, so that you can't say, okay, I'm fine here, but the problem is in Europe and America and in Japan, industrialized areas. No, it's one common shield, as far as the atmosphere is concerned. So if one part of the world is affected, another part of the world will also be affected, even though they themselves have not used consumed, industrially as widespread as Western societies have. But it affects it on a global basis. So, the melting of the sea ice, the increase in the water levels throughout the world, submergence of low-lying areas, that's going to affect areas that have nothing to do with industrialization and oil and gas production.
Okay. Thank you, Tahib, for that. We have another question. It says, what is typical facility arrangement or requirement for CSS project? What is a typical facility arrangement or requirement for CSS project? What kind of facility should be put in place for carbon capture and storage projects? I would recommend that you can see typical layouts. For instance, the Shell report for Quest facility. Basically, now there's a lot of effort being given what we call direct air capture of CO2. But if it is from steam methane reforming, that's typical, for from natural gas source. But if it's coal gasification, so basically you got to capture the CO2 and then you got to compress it and then build a pipeline, whatever the impurities are, because the CO2 has to be dry, okay? And it has to be in a supercritical phase, liquid phase for you to inject. So if it has got contaminants and it's water, etc., that's not good because CO2 is highly corrosive. So, and it changes its phases. So it can be a liquid, it can be a solid, it can be a vapor, depending upon its pressure and temperature phase changes. So that's why you always want to pump CO2 down in a supercritical phase so that it remains as a liquid, and it has to be at certain depth requirements, the pressure and temperature, etc. So, and then the transportation of CO2 is another aspect that has to be looked at. So that it's in the dense phase and uses less pore space, etc. And how do you, but it's well established. Like I said, we've been capturing CO2 and using it for enhanced oil recovery for the past 70 years in the Permian Basin. And we also have natural CO2 that occurs from reservoirs that are 100% CO2 bearing. So we produce the CO2 from depths about 8,000, 10,000 feet, bring it to the surface. This is natural CO2, which is different from man-made, what we call anthropogenic CO2 that causes, from fossil fuels, etc. And then we ship it. We got an extensive pipeline network and ship it to
the oil fields in the Permian Basin. So the transportation, the construction of materials for the wells, the surface facilities, all that have to be looked at in order to, and the capture itself, in order to complete the process. So there are different flow diagrams that are available. And what I would recommend is the one that Shell is using, and it's available for public. You just go to the internet and put Shell Quest Canada, Quest, that is QUEST, project in Canada, and you'll see the facility layout for that facility. And then you have different ones in different parts of the world. The Gorgon in Australia is one, Petrobras has in Brazil, then Equinor has several in the North Sea, along with BP. Depending upon your offshore or onshore, and Aramco has in Saudi Arabia, and what are the monitoring that is needed, the surveillance techniques. But in the US right now, we only have one active project for storage right now in Illinois. But there are more coming. That's owned by ADM, Arthur Daniels Midland, but more are being in the permitting stage right now in the US.
Oh, thank you so much, Ali, for that rich response. It has really broadened the presentation the more. We have another question. At $2 per kg, is this not a high cost compared to gas as a fuel? Someone is asking that question. At $2 per kg of hydrogen, is that not a high cost compared to gas as a fuel?
I'm sorry, I did not hear that clearly, that question.
This question was asked by Emeka Ene. It says, at $2 per kg, is this not a high cost compared to gas as a fuel? Although he didn't tell us what $2 per kg of what, but from our lecture, I think it's $2 per kg of the hydrogen gas. So he's trying to say the cost of the gas, is it not too much, or is it not high compared to the regular use of gas as fuel?
Yeah, right now, the cost of producing hydrogen from fossil fuels is much more attractive, like $2 to $3 per kilogram. But if you want to get the environmental advocates, in order to reach the carbon targets, they want to use renewables as a source, and the costs are still $7 to $8 per kilogram. So a lot of effort is being made. And the only way you can do that is to scale it up. And that will not happen unless there's huge, input of financial subsidies, and the tax regulatory burden is reduced. Remember, I talked about the credit that is being given, $45 per ton for storage and $30 a ton, and EU has similar ones. But it varies. It varies from region to region and place to place, depending upon what. But there's a lot of money being put in on research in order to come up with new ways, in order to incorporate technological steps that can be taken in order to produce hydrogen at lower cost in order to make it competitive. But time will tell whether they're going to be successful or not. Right now, we're not sure. But a lot of money is coming in from private equity. Just to give an example, if I'm just throwing out names, if I'm Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or whoever, if I can put 20% down and I get 80% backing from the federal government, I'm going to go for it, because the federal government says that's okay. We will help you in order to commercialize it and scale it up so that the costs go down with time. So, and then your investors want you to go in that direction. So BP is no longer an oil and gas company, it's an energy company. So if you're working offshore, your electrical needs may be met by offshore wind farms. But the technological challenges and the economic challenges are there. in order to scale it up. And that's what will determine whether we reach the targets that we have set for 2050, 2060, 2070, or we will fail. But a lot of work is going in all the companies. Remember I had said about ExxonMobil, 17 of their plants globally, they are setting up CCS units in all their plants globally. And that's just one example. Of course, Europe was ahead of us, Standard Oil, which became Equinor, and BP and Total, Shell, etc. in Europe. But in US, we're catching up now. Of course, the change in administration also helped to push it along.
Thank you so much, Talib. I think that is so there's a lot of encouragement from government to ensure that there is investment in this.
And I will share my slide deck presentation. I'll forward it to Mr. Bada, and then anybody is interested, he will forward it to them.
We're interested. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we have another question here. It says hydrogen gas. Hydrogen is a gas. H2 is a gas and not a liquid. How come the unit is in kg? Gases are measured in volumes, and volumes have liters, kg, depending on what units you prefer to use. So I wouldn't bother our lecturer with that answer. Let me just answer it. Hydrogen gas is measured in volumes. Once it is compressed and put in a vessel or a storage vessel, it can be measured in volumes, and kg is a unit for volume. Weight is a unit for weight. Okay, so with lack of government agents in some parts of the country, what role of national oil company? What's the role of the national? What role can the national oil company play to drive this discussion? Our lecturer already pointed it out. Policy issues should be put in place in Africa. Once there's policy issue, then the companies in that region, whether national or international, will align with the policy. So, but we, the citizens, have to push for the policy. That's it. We have to push for the policy. And once there's the policy, everybody will align. We know the case of gas flaring in Nigeria. It became an issue. Policy was put in place, and all IOCs, NOCs decided to see that they comply with policy, and that has helped us so far. Another question is, $2 per kg of hydrogen needs to be measured in terms of energy it produces against cheaper fuel sources. I think this person is trying to look at the economics. If what energy can $2 per kg of hydrogen provide compared with other cheaper sources of fuel? I don't know if Talib did that kind of economics before this presentation. Maybe he'll be able to tell us more. Over to you, Talib.
Yeah, I think as far as the national oil companies, they're going to play a bigger role, and whenever they team up with international oil companies, standards are going to be set on a global basis. It does not matter whether you're handling CO2 or hydrogen in Africa or the Middle East or in Europe or North America, standards are going to be consistent globally, whether it's you're following the ISO standards or European standards or American standards. The global standards are going to be put in place. So that will drive consistency across the board, irrespective of, and also national oil companies, when they team up with other international oil companies, they're going to have a standard template for them to operate, irrespective of where they operate. So they cannot have a set of operating procedures in Europe and have another set of operating procedures in Africa that harms the the health, the safety, the environment of the population and of that country. So that is going to happen, and some of the majors are already doing it. So they cannot have one set of operating conditions in one part of the world because of the liability. It is in their own interest to protect themselves. from any catastrophic incident that might happen, just from a liability perspective, and the loss of reputation. Imagine if something happens, what the impact would be on the market cap of that company. It does not matter where you're operating in the world. So you don't want to have an uncontrolled flow or an incident or whatever happen that harms the environment, that harms the people, the safety. So the social license to operate, the impact on the asset value, the damage to your reputation. So even if it's a national oil company, they have to be aware too, because the citizens will say, wait a minute, you didn't operate the way you were supposed to operate. So from an HSE perspective, from a economic perspective, the damage to the reputation and the asset value reduction, all those factors are going to drive consistency across the board. As far as the unit is concerned, I think it's just been converted. Yes, the hydrogen as a gas or liquid, it's been converted to a gram or kilogram basis just for a unit of energy comparison purposes. So when they talk about joules and exajoules, etc., that's a unit, SI unit that is used from an energy perspective. So in order to compare apples to apples, that's where the units have been used.
All right. Thank you. You were adding more points to the issue of government agents and NOCs and what they are doing to drive the discussion. Now, there's another question that is quite interesting because it has to do with economics. And it says, $2 per kg of hydrogen needs to be measured in terms of energy it produces against other sources of fuel. I don't want to say cheaper because it's where we have compared that we can say it's cheaper. So what energy, how much energy rather can $2 per kg of hydrogen produce? So we'd know if it's a cheaper source of fuel compared to the other fuels we already have. Is there any, do you have any, have you done any of that kind of economics because of this research? Talib, let's hear from you.
No, that's a good question. No, I don't have the answer for that right now.
All right, okay, thank you. Government grants are required for a shift to clean energy. What are the pro-clean energy companies doing to convince the government on the need for the approval of the new petroleum industry bill? So this has to do with policy issues too, here in Nigeria particularly, because the petroleum industry bill has been receiving some kind of readjustments, restudy, rewrite. A lot of things are being added and removed. So before we get a final draft that should be passed into law, it has to be holistic in terms of clean energy. And I believe there will be a time, just like Caliber said, that the citizenry should have a drive for that clean energy that will lead government to seeing it as something they have to deal with here in Nigeria. But so far, we've been able to cover all the questions. Our section chair has shared the YouTube for us to look at it and watch the events recorded. So many people are saying this is interesting. We want to have something like this again. So many people are saying thank you, Talib, for this wonderful lecture. We appreciate that you've also gone further to say you're going to share the slides with us. So we are happy that you gave us your time and we've been able to enjoy from your vast experience this evening. I want to say thank you to everyone for listening, and over to you, Simeon.
Thank you very much, Adobe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joe.
And thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, distinguished lecturer Talib Said. We are very grateful that when we call upon you, you're always there for us. Thank you once again for this wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
Now, the next we have on the agenda.
Hello, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I will just allow our section director, so former Nigerian Council chairman, Mr. Emeka, and if he has some comments, please. He's been with us from the beginning. Mr.
Okay,
Emeka,
thank you.
please, for your comments or general view, please.
I just want to say just a few words that I'm quite impressed with the quality of the discussion, the quality of the presentation. For us in Nigeria and particularly in Port Harcourt, it's not too early to start to think green and carbon capture may seem very distant, but you can easily see where we can apply it. I think that from an educative point of view, we've picked up a few points. I personally have done that. I already have started an online discussion on ways and means in which hydrogen can be applied in our industry to enhance it, particularly because we're now in the transition energy space. And over the next decade, we're going to see the impact of all these decisions, funding, and of course, access to technologies are going to be more focused on green technologies. I just want to say I'm quite proud of the team, the Section 103. You kept the flag flying, and on that point, thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Joe, over to you.
Thank you very much, our session director. Thank you. We're very grateful for being with us. So the next we have on the agenda is about us, membership share. This will be handled by Dr. Jimmy. So Dr., can you quickly give us some information about us?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you all once more for joining the distinguished lecture. My name is Dr. Jimmy. I am the YP co-chair. I'm going to be handling the membership promotion for Section 103. SPE has different sections, and this is SPE Section 103 Port Harcourt. Who we are. We're a non-profitable organization, and also we're comprising of members that have to do with those that work in the energy industry. SP serves over 104 members in over 223 countries all over the world. All right, and one of our key resources is the technical knowledge we're able to disseminate to our members, and also provide services through our publication. We provide the services through our publications, our events, our webinars, or distinguished lectures such as this that you are part of. All right, what's SPE mission? SPE mission is to collect, disseminate, and also exchange technical knowledge concerning exploration, development, and production of the oil and gas industry, or the energy industry as a whole. All right. Our percentage for professional members in region-wide, okay? So about SP Port Harcourt, or SP Section 103. SP Section 103 is the second largest member that has the second largest membership in Nigeria. First, you have the Lagos section, and we come in as the second position, covering over 6 states, mostly in the Niger Delta and also in the Southeast. What's our membership strength? Currently, we have 1,000 professional members and increasing, and then over a 1,701 student membership increasing. All right, and we have won several awards like the SP Section Award, SP International Section Award, the Best YP Awards, All Regional Technical Discipline, Outstanding Young Member. You know, we have won 6 SP NC 2019 Way Award, and also Student Chapter Awards. Why should you be a member of SP Section 103? Because you get to profit or gain from technical programs certification programs. I have had like over recently, just in this board year, over 6 to 7 certificates from programs in SPE. We have meetings and events, and we have reduced registration. The amount for registration is reduced for us. And you have license to your JPT, One Petrol, and every other resources, online resources that we have, and also opportunity to be part of award programs and attend conferences. So, who can be a member of SPE? A student, a graduate, a young professional, and even a professional can all be members of SPE. And what are the benefits for being a member of SPE? Like I said earlier, you get to be exposed to first-class industry technical knowledges, get to be part of live technical events, maybe visiting of a field or programs, and also enhance industry knowledge, and so much more you can benefit from being a member of SPE. I personally, right now, I'm going to be benefiting from one of the best MBA institute, courtesy of SPE Scholarship Award that was awarded to me. All right, so what are the 4 easy steps to get on the board as in to be part of a member of SPE? First of all, you can join us by clicking on that link, fill the form, submit the form, do your necessary payments, scan the payment receipt, and also send. The account number is there to send it to. And also for returning members or already existing members that are not up to date, you can also pay your membership dues through that account. All right, so once we receive your form and the evidence of payment, the next processes are being done by SPE, and you get your SPE unique number showing or signifying that you're now a member of SPE. And then you can get added to our different Telegram groups or WhatsApp groups to be updated on events and activities coming up. So those of us that are already members and those of us that are planning to be, these are all our social media spaces. I will encourage all of us to screenshot what is displaying on our screen right now and follow us on all our social media spaces so that we can be updated for events and programs coming up in SP Section 103, just like the distinguished lecture right now that is going on. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you. So the next, let's quickly take photographs before we move to announcements and closing remarks by the SM. Yeah. Kindly on your videos, please.
Hello, Simeon, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so it takes just 45 seconds. Please, on your video, please, 45 seconds, 40 seconds, counting down. But we really like you to smile. We can see some lovely children having some smiles. Thank you, Mr. Kalu. Yeah, you should smile like that kid. Huh? Please. Yeah, we are in 30 seconds, counting down. We love nice pictures. Bright. Smile. 20 seconds. Simeon.
Yeah, we are good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I know some of you still like to smile. Thank you. Dr. Joe, over to you.
All right. Simeon.
Okay, Dr. Joe, are you there? Take the upcoming events, please.
Yeah. All right, Simeon. Upcoming events. Tomorrow we are going to have another monthly technical meeting, and the topic is owning an intellectual property. It's not a rocket science, or is it? It's going to be handled by our dear Dr. James Aruke, and the moderator is Dr. Tobin's Bridge from University of Port Harcourt. The time is 5:30, so I will ask employ everyone to join the meeting, and I believe it's going to be very interesting. So you can use the registration link as provided to join the meeting tomorrow. Another event that is upcoming is the golf tournament. It's going to take place on 12th of June. That's next month, and the venue is Python International Golf Club. So the registration fee was 20,000 before, but now we've reduced to 10,000. So I believe this is affordable. Many people can join. We also have another project, a community outreach project tagged Project Portable Water. And it's all about providing portable water for a community, a Labrador community in a Moha local government area. So donations are welcome. We are looking forward to about 1 million naira to provide a portable water for that community. And you can see the account details provided in this flyer, or you can use the pay stack option to also make donations so that we can provide a borehole for that community. We also have another event, digitalization webinar. That will come up on the 5th of June, 2021. We're also expecting another MTN on June 10th. Golf charity tournament, I've mentioned that before. Then we'll also have a management study group, and that presentation is going to come up on the 29th of June. And another MTN on 8th of July, 2021. Thank you very much. So may I call on the SC to take on the
so thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. So I mean, for Mr. Talib's side, we have now become so much of a friend. So I called him and I said, you can't do this to only Denver, even though I know in Africa we don't have any CC, we don't have any carbon capture here. We're not capturing anything here. It's just because we are clean in Africa. It's not that we don't want to capture, but Africa is clean for now, you know. So let you want to capture it first. So thank you so much for. Okay. So thank you so much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. And you can see that it brings forth a lot of sections all over the world that are here. We've seen some sections in Asia. We've seen sections from the Europe and also from the Americas. We've also seen some sections in Africa and also in Nigeria. So it's because you're ideal. So everybody is always attracted to wherever you go. So thank you also for making us, we are friends to some of the sections now in the world. Really appreciate that. And also thanks to the moderator. Honestly, I informed her so late and she has done real justice, very outstanding job. Thank you, Dr. Ada, for this good job. You know, we have to call you more again for more jobs to do for us. Thank you for your volunteerism. I would also like to thank our section directors and also the board that are present here. And especially we have Mr. Emeka Ene that spoke earlier on. He's been here like from the beginning. So I was becoming because I know he's a very time conscious person. So I say, we have to start on time. So thank you so much. I've seen Said Olosha. So several of our directors are here, the board, they are here. And we also have our students, surprisingly. It's very a bit difficult now for our students attending most of the webinar, even though they are nice. Very, very nice. It's not easy for them because of the data. So we try as much as possible to support our students. And I hope, Dorcas, you have tried to take note of our students in section 103 that participated. So if you have participated, we are, Simeon, please, and Dorcas, take notes. We need to do as usual for them, please. So having said that, I just took a few points again that I just want to recap that Mr. Talib Said mentioned about renewable is still high, so it's not very competitive, so to speak, compared to like fossil fuel and others. He mentioned about the hydrogen solution is also still is key to renewable. For now, he mentioned about the storage of hydrogen. It's not as how we have the carbon storage. So there's still challenges. So I mean, for people that wants to pick up some projects and some research, there's a lot of things being mentioned here. Of course, we don't have any CCS project in Africa. That's no news anymore because we are clean. And of course,
the big one was in Algeria, the Insala one,
that's cool. Good.
BP's Insala project in Algeria, in Sonatrach.
Okay, Sonatrach. You mentioned very good thing about advanced regulation that is needed if we want to curb fossil fuel and if we want to really encourage renewables. It's not about talking, it's just about policy. Have to really be in place, advanced regulations, you call it.
Yeah,
so really
just a point, fossil fuels is still going to play a very important role. It's not going to disappear. It is going to play a big role in the future too. But the transition that's the way we're headed globally.
Thank you. So having said that, so thanks so much for everyone that participated in this. Thanks to the program's chairman for coordinating everything. And thanks to all the sections all over the world that have attended this. Tomorrow, we put the link earlier on there. I hope they also put the link for membership. If you are not a member, we've had a sponsor. Normally, this program should be for only members. So we had a sponsor that have allowed non-members to attend, so make good use of this. If you now want to be a member, because it's not really all our programs that is very inclusive like that, we want people also to come in and enjoy more of our services, networking, technical networking, and social and corporate social responsibilities. A lot of things that we do in SP. And so tomorrow we share the link already. If you want to own an intellectual property, you want something like a patent, we have another distinguished lecturer, 5:30 tomorrow, that is going to break this down because he owns a lot himself. On Saturday, one thing is not mentioned for students and also for young professionals. On Saturday, by 12, I think, 12, but it will be in all our social media spaces by now. You can find it SP Port Harcourt. We are having a webinar. We are collaborating with another educational consultancy company that will be explaining or detailing what we know as SOP. Okay, so statement of purpose is very key when you are going for any kind of studies from foundation to PhD level in most of the schools all over the world. And your statement of purpose gives them insight to take you or not to take you. It plays a very big role also in you getting scholarships. So by 12 p.m. on Saturday, this will be done. You can find this in most of our social media spaces. They are there. You can register and try to be a part of this. So having said this, I wish every one of you a good evening. And of course, we'll see you tomorrow again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you so much, Salim. Really appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
And you too. And enjoy your weather there.
Thank you.
Thank
signing
you.
off.
Bye.
Dr. Joe, so are we done?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So Simeon, we are done. So you can put in your usual music. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. You can check us out on the YouTube. Just type in SP Port Harcourt. You can watch most of our programs, including this one. Is there. You can download. You can share it. I think it's to be nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Simeon, are you there? If you want to interact further with Talib, please, he's very active on LinkedIn. So Talib side, please, very active on LinkedIn. If you want to interact on all these topics with him.
Secondary school. Secondary school. See that boy now for secondary school. Just even go see Joe. Joe they try, right? And get car, and get driver.
That's for the secondary school students.
The program is organized for secondary school. Secondary school, these are the organized. All these were SPE members. Organized secondary schools. All those they are stamped, you know.
What is STEM?
We really do robotics and all those things. Secondary school. You know, it's secondary school participate. These people I don't see.
Timo. Timo. No, want it small. Not small. It's better than come small. Bending down to help people with water.